Good morning. It's Pop again, Dennis Murray. This is Popcast 16, and uh, it's going to be more about the gender aspects of the two ways of judging. I know I said yesterday I was going to move on to a different topic, but I need to finish one point before I move away from this. In general, when I make statements, I'm not asking you to accept them on my authority. Um, I don't claim to be an expert. Experts and people who are offering wisdom are not the same thing. Um, I have done a lot of reading and thinking for a bunch of years. I hope I have discovered some things that are wise in my life's experience, and I hope I'm able to pass them along in words that make sense to you. So I will, on occasion, cite a book in support of whatever it is I'm talking about. But mostly, I'm talking about things that are part of our everyday experience and that you can examine for yourself, and in your experience in the world. Of course, the older you are, the more experiences you'll have. But um, fundamentally, what I'm offering wisdom, and you have to be the judge of whether it's wisdom, and you judge that by using your own intuitions and your own experience and your own logical examination and comparing your intuitions and your experience to the thing I just suggested. I wanted to get that sort of general understanding on the table. Um, so, in that regard, I'm going to cite two books today, and the official, listing of the books will be in the notes that are part of the description of this podcast um, that you can find on YouTube. So you don't have to write down the name and author of the book; it'll be on the YouTube information. But more than that, I want to direct your own experience to something about type, and particularly about these two ways of judging. So, is it easy to see when you look at yourself which way you use to judge? Do you use a rule book or do you use a photo album? Are you trying to be objective or are you using subjective personal preferences? Um, maybe that's pretty clear in you, but it's possible that your neither of those is your highly developed skill, and typically you're only going to have one highly developed skill. The rest of the psychological skills are less developed. The one you use most is called the dominant or highly developed skill, and it's of the most use to you and to those around you. um, so supposing your skill is at perceiving facts, or your skill is perceiving how the facts might go together, well, then your skill at judging, uh, you're not going to be much better at one way or the other of judging. Everybody has all of the skills in some form. And typically, the there's not that much difference between the second and third level, of your skills. The fourth is usually pretty weak and not developed much until a little later in life. So if your highly developed skill is one of the ways of perceiving, then there's not going to be that much difference between the way you judge. You may use the rule book sometimes with some facility, and you may use personal preference sometimes with some facility. There may be a little bit more skill on your part at the rule book or at personal preference, but it may not be so easy for you to see which is stronger. So just when you're observing yourself, it's not always easy to see clearly which of the two ways of judging is stronger in you, unless one of them is your highly developed skill. In that case, it's going to be pretty plain to you which way you judge. Um, Now, when you're looking at others, so again, I mean, my whole point is you're going to use your own powers of observation, your own experience, and your own intuitions to examine the things that I'm saying that I think may be wise, and see what you think based on, your examination of the thing. Um, so when you're examining others, again, some of the other people around you is pretty plain that they're all about the rule book or all about the photo album. But for others around you, it doesn't appear to be all that big a difference between the rule book and the photo album in the way they live their lives. So it's not always that easy to figure out um, this information about yourself and about others when you're observing. And that was another point I want to make. So don't be startled when you go looking around at yourself and others and find it a little subtle. For all but one of the psychological skills, um, the difference is minor. For only the one that's highly developed is pretty obvious. Then there's another trick that Jung discovered that introverts and extroverts are different about this. Extroverts show you what they got. So if there are people whose highly developed skill is judging, believe me, you know which way they judge because they do it all the time. It's pretty plain. And if their extroverted skill is some way of perceiving, then you can see these guys are really awesome about facts, or wow, she has an incredible capacity to see how the facts might go together. So these things you can observe about others. But for an introvert, they often show not their strongest skill, but their second and third. So that it may take you a bit of real knowing. You need to get to know this person if the person is an introvert to figure out some more things about their psychological type, about their preferences, their skills, and which one is highly developed. So I'm an introvert, and my very, very dominant skill, my most highly developed skill is intuition, how facts might go together. But that's not what I show. As a younger person, what I showed mostly was that I judged by a rule book. And fortunately, in the course of my marriage, my wife helped teach me to value um, the warmth and feeling and personal perspective um, that are so much a part of common sense, which I really wanted to have and didn't have any of. And so that I was able to get more comfortable with the other way of judging. And over time, you often balance out your personality so that things tend to move towards the middle. You become a little less this and a little less that and a little more the other. And as you develop and mature, you kind of cut off some of your edges. So I'm gaining an appreciation of facts, which I never had any use for. And so I just wanted you to realize this isn't always all that obvious because you will be looking at yourself and others trying to see if the statements I'm making about the way people these psychological skills and they're being specialized. So first you want to verify, do people seem to have psychological skills? Do they seem to be specialized? And does that have the effect that I think it does of strengthening our call towards each other, um, so that in a group we have the benefit of highly developed forms of these various skills, since we only have one highly developed in ourselves. So the two books, real quick, are Gifts Differing um, by Isabel Briggs Myers. And she created the Myers Briggs type indicator along with um, um, her um, her mother. Um, and This book is also co-authored with her son, Peter Myers. Um, the original book, Peter Myers was not the co-author. It doesn't matter which one you buy, the original or the later version. Gifts Differing. It's by Consulting Psychologists Press in California. It's a fabulous book about Myers Briggs, so called MBTI, and the whole thing about Jungian type. And there's another take on our psychological skills um, called Temperament. And the book I like a lot in that subject is Please Understand Me. And this book, David Kiersey is the principal author. This book has a chart in the back that you can give yourself a little mini test on. And it is a pretty good way to get a clue about yourself. You answer these questions and get some ideas. Um, and it also gives you some subtleties and understanding. So either one of those books or both of them, and look around, look inside, and judge for yourself. Okay, thanks a lot for today. I'm sorry. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.